my friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm creating for Authentique Paper. I'm using the Magical Christmas collection and I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone a little by using my beautiful vintagey pattern papers to create some designs that are a little more updated and modern. I've got some big chunky font sentiments and some new pretty scalloped edges to work with. So these came in while we were camping. We were gone last weekend and I could hardly stand to get right into them and create some cards. So stick with me and we will make these together. So as I mentioned, we just got back from our camping trip and I thought it would be a little fun to share with you where we were located. So we went to the Algonac State Park, and that is where the big giant ships go through on the river on their way to Chicago. So Michigan, looking a little bit like a mitten here. So we're basically in the southeast lower part, and so where Michigan connects to Canada is about here and then also about up here. So in between that we have Lake Erie on the bottom, and then Lake St. Clair, and then Lake Huron on the top. And then if you're coming from Canada, you'll be coming from the Atlantic all the way through like around Nova Scotia, and then down through Lake Huron, and then up through Lake St. Clair to Lake Huron, and then a loop around the top of Michigan. So now you're in Lake Michigan, and then Chicago is about right here. So that's where all the really huge ships get around to get to Chicago. And I want to say I have never really been around those big ships. It was a very amazing, and I don't know how they navigate such big ships in a river, but it was a lot of fun to watch and the weather was beautiful. We had a lot of fun and it was a great last minute trip, not planned really. We just kind of went and we had such a good relaxing time. While I was there, I did take delivery of some new dies I was pretty excited to work with, and so I got out my Magical Christmas collection. This is from Authentique Paper. So for today's project, I am using both the 6x6 paper pad and the 12x12. I'm going to use the 12x12 for the first card that I show you how to assemble, and then I just wanted to flip through here real quick to show you what great paper patterns they have here and sweet vintage images. Now I'm not using any of the images today. I'm basically just going to use my new dies to create a large font, big sentiment on there. And then I'm using also the coordinating spectrum cardstock pattern. So this is red licorice, works perfectly with this collection, as well as Crocodile Smile, and these are just the perfect vintagey shade of cardstock to coordinate. Here are the dies that I'm going to be using. These came in while we were on our trip, and these all come from Whimsy Stamps, so I was very excited to pick up a very large blocky letter. And so I have tried in the past to use my Cricut and cut out letters, and I didn't have the correct thick font for greeting cards. This is really perfect. Now I'm going to have to go through and pull these all apart and put them on a magnet board so that I don't go crazy trying to find all the letters I need to spell the words. But these are really perfect for greeting card size. I think the largest side would be an 1 1/8" or 1 1/4". I'm not sure which one it said, but that's really perfect. You're going to be able to spell out all kinds of nice sentiments for the holidays or birthday or whatever you want to do. And so you can easily just break all these letters apart and use them through your die cutting machine. I cut my letters from mirror cardstock, and as you can see, they're absolutely gorgeous. Some of them I put on pop dots, and some of them I'm going to adhere right to the base. But I did think it's important to mention, if you're going to be cutting your mirror cardstock with a flatter surface on top that will show any kind of dents, you want to switch to a newer set of plates for your die cutting machine. So I have the Sizzix Big Shot, and I keep a set of plates just for this reason. I want to have some of my mirror cardstock or fancier cardstock not have in it a bumpy image, which I would get if I were using this is what I typically use every day, and this is cut like thousands of flowers and doilies and lots of things that kind of dent or give a texture to the surface, and that will show through if you cut your mirror cardstock with it. So I keep this for almost every day, pretty much everything I cut, and I'll probably get a new one at some point, but I'll keep using it until it doesn't work anymore. But then also have a nice set on hand so that you can cut your foils and your mirror cardstock. So I'm gonna use my new alphabet along with, this is called the envelope edger die set. So this has just a pretty edge. Some of them are scalloped, some of them are straight, some of them are stitched with that detail, and then some are offset. So I'm going to use the one with the point in the middle and then the one that is offset. So my first card is 5 by 6.5. That's pretty standard. I finished the inside with the coordinating pattern paper from the 12 by 12 pages of A Magical Christmas. And now I'm going to start layering on the top. So I'm going to open this here so I can get a better angle to get it centered. And here's more of that stripe. I'm sorry if that is hard on your eyes in the camera. I'll get it covered up as soon as I can. And remember, I'm using that red licorice cardstock that coordinates so well. So my next layer is going to be popped up, and I've just got a second pattern here with my double-sided adhesive tape along with my Tombow, and that will be extra secure. So I've got that red licorice, and instead of using this as just a border on this layer, I am using it as the actual pattern as well. It doesn't show up greatly on camera. There is a very non-contrasting polka dot on one side, so it has just a very subtle pattern. And because I wanted it to separate the red from the stripe on the background, I went ahead and added a border of white cardstock. This is 110 pound. It also helps to make this a little bit more sturdy. And so here we have our first layer of dimension. Here comes that first die cut. Now I've gone to a plaid, and I absolutely love Authentique Paper plaids. They're just amazing. And so I've cut that with my die. It has that envelope edge, so it has a little scallop and then a double stitched edge. I cut this with pattern paper, then I cut another one with white cardstock, and I just lined that up and adhered it together and cut it back out. So I knew it would line up perfectly because that scallop of white cardstock is really going to pop off of this beautiful darker red background. I'm gonna flip it around just so that I can get it lined up a little better. And I've got this on my foam as well, so this is going to be one more layer of dimension, and I'm using that red cardstock as a border for this. So I mean that I've just cut this to have a red border around, even though it's going to be the pattern paper on the bottom. I'm going to take a second to wiggle that into place. There are so few elements on this card. It's more of a clean and simple, not really, but it will be more noticeable if you don't get things glued on correctly. So take a minute to make sure that you got everything just where you want it. So now we have 2 layers of dimension, and I might as well show the flower arrangement here. Just the simple poinsettia, 2 different sizes, 2 different colors. This is the Spellbinders Becca Feekin Cinch and Go poinsettia. I created mine with a center of some stamens. These came from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and then I topped it with just a berry stem and put a couple of die cut holly leaves here, some loopy twine bows, and some glittery stars cut from glitter cardstock. And I'm gonna just lay this in place for a moment and then see where all of the rest of the elements land, and then I can position that at the last minute. So for my sentiment here, I'm gonna spell out Be Merry, because I think that helps to fill in a little bit of that negative space, and that's not really like, it still has a pattern, but it will be very easy to see these letters on it. And so that's why I picked the non-contrasting background. So I'm gonna put Be Merry here. My B is up on my scrapbook adhesive foam tabs. So these I picked up from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and those are just a little bit of dimension and a little bit smaller, so they're easier to work with on these little letters. So one more thing I'm gonna mention before I add these is if you have some score tape or double-sided adhesive that's a little too wide, you can add it to some wax paper and cut it in half. That's what I had to do to get around these letters, and it's pretty easy just to stick that on there and cut it, and now you've got score tape that's 1/8 of an inch, and you can get it around all of those curves a whole lot easier, and it will help your score tape last a little longer as well. So let me just put these on, and then I'll cut back in when it's done. So now I've got my lettering in place, and you can see that I was able to utilize that subtle pattern in the background to help me get my letters lined up. So I think they look really perfect. Now I want to see if I want to adjust my flowers here, and I think I like them kind of curving toward this way because I can really see that decorative edge. So last but not least, I do want to include a couple of these pretty sequins, and that will kind of bring a little bit of detail over to this side as well. So for my second card that I've created, it's basically the same layout. I've got the border strip there and then the scalloped edge envelope die, but what I did for my smaller A2 size card is switch to the 6x6 paper pad, and that gave me a much better scale. And then I switched obviously to the Crocodile Smiles cardstock, and then I've also switched out the background for the patterned paper that was in the 6x6 paper pad. It was a nice small micro dot, so I knew that it would not compete at all with my die cut Joy sentiment here. I did add my sequins to match the first one, and then a slightly smaller flower arrangement on the top. I finished it with gold twine instead of like burlap string, and then I added a very small, this is a 3/8 of an inch ribbon that I tied a loopy bow, and then I added it underneath that flower display. So another thing to know about my smaller card is that I did not use spacers. This will fit in an A2 size envelope. I don't believe it will ship nicely or be the correct postage as you would expect a regular standard card, but it will fit in the envelope. So if you're adding it to a package with other things, that would be perfect. So these are the cards I created today to be a little bit more updated and modern. I still use my beautiful Authentique pattern paper, that's a Magical Christmas, along with my new dies and some old favorites from the poinsettia, and I am really thrilled with how these cards turned out. As always, you can check the description below for links to these products if you want to check them out, as well as links for all our social media sites. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, our blog, and our Etsy shop. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. And if you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.